The night I decided to leave Adrian Hale was the same night he told the mayor to kneel. And the mayor did. Just like that. Kneeling in a $5,000 suit while Adrian barely lifted an eyebrow. That was the moment I realized two things. 1, my husband was terrifying. And 2, I was completely, hopelessly still in love with him. But love doesn't fix everything. It certainly didn't fix what was hidden beneath the floorboards of our estate. People in Lakewood County whispered Adrian's name with the same reverence they reserved for thunder. He was the kind of man the country club watched from a distance, afraid to blink. He built an empire of security tech and law enforcement contracts before he turned 30. He chaired foundations, intimidated senators, and walked through the world like someone who owned every building he entered. And then there was me, Ezra Reyes, 30. Community college art teacher with a Honda Civic that rattled whenever I turned left. Somehow, inexplicably, I was the one Adrian kissed good morning. I was the one whose hand he held under the dinner table whenever he grew bored of politics. I was the one he softened for, or used to soften for. Lately, the coldness had slipped in like a draft through an unpatched window, quiet, persistent. I kept telling myself it was stress from the new contract in D.C., or his father's legacy weighing on him again, or the sleepless nights he spent locked in his office. Anything but the truth. The truth was in the basement. I didn't know exactly what he kept down there, but I knew enough, or felt enough. Like all secrets, it clung to the walls of our marriage. That night, after the ridiculous mayor incident, Adrian's driver dropped us off at the estate. The wind howled across the hills as if warning me to turn back. "Ezra," Adrian said as we stepped inside. His voice measured, "Don't wait up tonight." I forced a smile. "Another long meeting?" His jaw clenched. "Something like that." Then he kissed my forehead rather than my lips, and the hollowness of it echoed all the way to my chest. The moment he disappeared down the east hallway, I exhaled. I didn't want to spy on my own husband. I didn't want to doubt him. I didn't want to be the kind of person who memorized the weight of his footsteps or listened for secret doors at 3 in the morning. But I was. You don't survive loving a man like Adrian Hale without learning to hear the things he never says. So after half an hour of pacing, I made my way toward the basement door. The house was silent except for the rain tapping on the windows like impatient fingers. My hand hovered over the cold brass knob. And then I paused, because I could hear something on the other side. Something that breathed. Not human breathing. Not exactly. The hairs on my arms stood. My heart stumbled. Every instinct screamed at me to run. Instead, I pressed my ear to the wood. Then I heard chains. Not loud. Just a faint metallic clink. Quiet enough to be deniable. Terrifying enough not to be. I backed away, pulse thundering, and nearly collided with someone in the hallway. I froze. He froze. It wasn't Adrian. It was Milo Turner, our groundskeeper, his dark curls dripping rainwater onto the floor. "Mr. Reyes?" he whispered, eyes wide. "You shouldn't be down here." My voice came out thin. "Why not?" Milo swallowed hard. "Please, just trust me." I wanted to ask more, but the sound of footsteps echoed from the far end of the corridor, steady and unmistakable. "Adrian." Milo silently shook his head, urging me to go. I hesitated, then slipped away just as Adrian turned the corner. His cold blue eyes swept the hall. For a second, I was sure he saw the panic pinned across my face. He didn't ask why I was there. He didn't ask anything. He unlocked the basement door and disappeared inside. And the lock clicked behind him. I stood in the dark, and something inside me finally cracked. I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't love a man with a secret he would bury me to protect. And that was the night I decided to divorce Adrian Hale. But here's the thing no one tells you about trying to leave a powerful man. He doesn't let you leave. Not really. The next morning, he appeared in the kitchen like nothing was wrong, hair damp from a shower, sleeves rolled, making coffee as if he were any normal husband. He even smiled at me, a soft smile, the kind he hadn't used in months. "Morning," he murmured. I stared at him. "Morning." He handed me a mug. "You didn't sleep well." A statement, not a question. I struggled. I was restless. His fingers brushed mine, warm and familiar. Too familiar. We should get away next weekend. Maybe the cabin. Just the two of us. My throat tightened. Adrian was never gentle without a reason. This was the kind of gentleness that came from fear, not affection. What did he think I knew? He leaned forward and kissed me softly. My heart ached with the stupidity of wanting to lean into it. But I pulled away. He noticed. His eyes sharpened by a fraction. Ezra, I have to get to work. You're avoiding me. I'm late. His voice dropped, low and dangerous. Ezra, look at me. I turned. His gaze held mine captive. Whatever is going on, he said quietly. Talk to me. I almost said everything. The basement, the breathing, the chains, the distance that had grown between us like ivy strangling a house. But something in his eyes stopped me. Fear. Not my fear. His. I had never seen fear on Adrian Hale. And that was when I realized the truth. Whatever he kept in that basement wasn't just dangerous. Terrified him too. I left the house shaking. At school, I attempted to teach my morning art class but spent most of it gripping a charcoal stick like it was a lifeline. My students pretended not to notice the way my hands trembled. During lunch, my phone buzzed. A message from Milo. We need to talk. Not here. Not at the house. Please. It's about the basement. My stomach lurched. I typed back. Where? But before I could hit send, another notification popped up. This time from Adrian. Dinner tonight. Just us. Don't say no. Command disguised as care. I stared down at the two messages, heart splitting between terror and loyalty, between truth and the man I loved more than air. By the time I got home, the sun had already dipped below the hills, leaving the estate bathed in bruised purple light. Adrian waited in the dining room, surrounded by candles, a table set for two. It looked romantic. It looked perfect. Felt like a trap. You're quiet, he said as I sat down. I forced a breath. Long day. Ezra. His voice softened. Talk to me. I didn't answer. He set his fork down and studied me with a calculating calm that always felt like the air right before lightning. You've been near the basement. The words sliced through me. My pulse pounded in my ears. Adrian. I wasn't. It's okay. He leaned back, but his eyes stayed locked on me. You're afraid. I can see that. He stood and walked around the table until he was beside me. Then he knelt. Adrian Hale, the man who made mayors kneel, kneeling before me. Ezra, he whispered, voice cracking. I never wanted you to see that part of my world. My breath caught. He took my hand, fingers trembling against my palm. But if you want the truth, he said, I'll show you. The basement door creaked open. The air smelled of metal and damp stone. He guided me down the steps slowly, as if he were leading me into a memory he dreaded. Halfway down, he stopped. What you're about to see, he said quietly, is not what you think. Then we reached the bottom, and everything I believed about my husband shattered. I froze at the bottom of the stairs. For a second, I couldn't understand what I was seeing. My brain rejected it, tried to twist it into something darker because that was what I had feared for weeks. But reality, the real reality, was so painfully unexpected that my chest caved in. There, in the center of the basement, beneath a single flickering industrial light, was a narrow metal bed. And on that bed lay a boy, not a child, but young early 20s maybe, thin, ghostly pale, hooked to medical monitors that beeped slowly, steadily. His wrists weren't chained like I had feared. They were restrained with padded straps, the kind hospitals used for patients who might hurt themselves. His eyes were closed. His dark hair clung to his forehead with sweat. He wasn't a prisoner. He was dying. My knees almost buckled. Adrian, I whispered. What is this? The words scraped out of me like something breaking. Adrian didn't answer immediately. He stepped past me and approached the bed with a careful, almost reverent calm. He adjusted the blanket over the young man's chest, his movements painfully gentle. His name is Luca, Adrian said softly. He's my brother. My world jolted. Brother. It hit me like a punch. A secret sibling. A secret life. Something so human. So raw. So heartbreakingly normal yet hidden under layers of silence and fear. And Adrian. Adrian had kept this from me. Your brother. I repeated, breathless. Adrian. You told me you were an only child. I lied. My heart shattered a little at how simply he said it. He turned to me then, and for the first time since I had known him since the night, he leaned across a bar in D.C. and asked for my name with that quiet confidence that made my pulse misfire. I saw something unguarded in his eyes. Shame. I should have told you, he whispered. I should have trusted you. I couldn't speak. My throat was tight, choking on betrayal and compassion tangled together so violently I couldn't separate them. Adrian took a slow breath. Luca has a degenerative neurological condition. Rare. Aggressive. The kind of thing that steals pieces of him every month. His voice wavered. He refuses hospitals. He ran away from 3 of them. And the last time, he hurt himself. I glanced at the padded restraints. My stomach twisted. I brought him here because it's the only place where I can keep him safe. The only place he can't walk out of. The only place the paparazzi won't find him and turn him into a headline. I stared at Luca, fragile, breathing shallowly. Nothing like Adrian's sharp-edged presence. Nothing like the empire his older brother built with iron. But they had the same jawline, the same stubbornness in the shape of their brows. And suddenly, the breathing I'd heard through the basement door. The metallic sounds. None of it was sinister. It was medical equipment. Oxygen pumps. Safety restraints. Guilt hit me so hard I stumbled backward and gripped a table for balance. Oh God! I whispered. I thought you, Adrian. I thought you were hurting someone. I thought you were dangerous. His jaw tightened. You think I don't know that? His voice wasn't angry but wounded. You've been afraid of me for weeks, Ezra. I saw it in your eyes. I heard it in the way you walked around me. Why didn't you just tell me? I snapped, my voice trembling. Why hide something like this from your husband? His expression cracked just a fraction. Because Luca isn't just sick. He's complicated. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing a step away then back again. When our father died, he left everything to me. The company. The money, the connections. Adrian's breath shuddered. And he left Luca nothing, because he said Luca was a liability. I flinched. Adrian's voice grew raw. The board thinks the same. If they find out I'm taking care of him, they'll use him against me. Or worse, against him. That was when I noticed the surveillance equipment lining one wall. Motion sensors. Heart rate monitors feeding to a central screen. A live medical chart. A private clinic disguised as a prison cell. How long? I whispered. 6 years, he said. Felt like someone had carved out my lungs. 6 years. 6 years of secrecy. 6 years of carrying this alone. No one knows, I asked. Only Milo, a private physician in Chicago. And now you. My chest cracked open. All this time, I thought Adrian was pulling away because he stopped loving me. Because he didn't trust me. Because he had some monstrous secret. Instead, he'd been breaking under the weight of protecting someone he loved. I covered my mouth with my hands, overwhelmed. Adrian stepped toward me slowly, cautiously, like he wasn't sure if I would run. You're divorcing me, he whispered. Aren't you? It was the softest, most fragile thing he had ever said. The kind of vulnerability he spent his whole public life avoiding. The kind he only let slip in front of Maya's husband, the one person he wanted to believe in him. Tears stung my eyes. I didn't want to, I choked out. I didn't want to leave you, Adrian. I thought I had no choice. His breath collapsed out of him. Then he reached for my hands low enough to give me a chance to pull away. I didn't. His fingers closed around mine with a trembling that undid me completely. I'm so sorry, he said. I thought I was protecting you. Protecting Luca. Protecting us. You don't protect someone by shutting them out, I whispered. I know. His voice broke. I know that now. We stood there between the shadows and the hum of medical machines, between the truth and all the lies we'd built around it, between love and fear and the terrible intimacy of realizing how deeply we had misunderstood each other. Luca stirred on the bed. A soft sound escaped Hema pained little gasp. Adrian immediately turned, instinctive, his whole body shifting from husband to guardian. He checked the monitors, adjusted the 4-drip, brushed a hand across Luca's hair with a tenderness that clutched at my heart. And that was when I saw it clearly, the thing Adrian never said, the thing he had been drowning in. He wasn't afraid of losing power. He wasn't afraid of the board or the company. He wasn't even afraid of me discovering the basement. He was afraid of losing his brother. That fear had devoured him. He finished adjusting the monitors, then looked at me again, eyes shining with exhaustion. I didn't know how to tell you without making you look at me differently, he admitted. Without making you see how weak I really am. I stepped closer. Loving someone isn't weakness. He swallowed. Hard. It is when the world expects you to be an alpha. Not to me, I said gently. He stared at me like those words physically lifted something off his shoulders. Then, in a whisper so raw it scraped the walls, he said, Ezra, please, don't leave me. The basement went silent except for Luca's steady beeping. I looked at my husband, complicated, flawed, powerful, terrified husband, and the fracture in my chest softened. Not healed. Not yet, but softened. I'm not leaving, I said. Adrian closed his eyes in relief. But then I added quietly, not tonight. His eyes snapped open. The fear returned sharper, deeper. We're not okay, I whispered. You lied to me, for years, and that hurts. He nodded slowly, accepting the truth like a sentence he deserved. But I'm not giving up on us, I continued. I just need time. I need to understand all of this. I need you to let me in. I will, he said instantly. Anything, whatever you want, whatever you need. His desperation was a knife and a bomb at once. I walked past him and sat on the chair beside Luca's bed. Adrian watched, breath held, confused. He's family, I said softly, which means he matters to me too. Adrian's eyes warmed. His throat bobbed as he swallowed. For a moment, neither of us moved. The distance between us wasn't gone, but it wasn't a chasm anymore. More like a wound that could heal if we held it carefully. And then Luca's eyes fluttered open. A tiny, raspy voice whispered, Adrian. Adrian froze. Then he leaned over. I'm here, he said, voice trembling. Luca's gaze drifted to me, confused, faint. Who's that? He murmured. Adrian hesitated, and I realized this was the moment he chose whether I was part of this family or not. He looked at me, then at Luca, and with a soft, steady breath he said, That's Ezra, my husband, the person I trust most in the world. I covered my mouth again as my eyes filled, because for the first time, not at our wedding, not in the years of living together, but here, in this hidden basement full of broken truths and fragile hope, he truly meant it. Yusei blinked at me, eyes glassy, confused in that fragile way sickness carves into someone's face. Husband, he repeated slowly, as if tasting the word. You never said you were married. Adrian froze. His mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. His entire body shifted with a guilt so thick the air seemed to hum with it. It wasn't safe for him to know, Adrian murmured, but even he didn't sound convinced. I squeezed Luca's fingers gently. It's okay, I whispered. We're all here now. Luca smiled, small, weak, but real. It was the kind of smile that made everything feel lighter for one impossible moment. Then his eyes fluttered closed again, exhausted. Adrian let out a breath he'd been holding for years. He stepped back, leaning against a steel cabinet, running both hands over his face. His shoulders were shaking. I'd never seen him like this, never seen the powerful, controlled Adrian Hale come undone. When he finally spoke, his voice was hoarse. Ezra, I can't lose him. I stood and walked to him. He didn't move away, didn't stiffen like he usually did when vulnerable. He just let me come closer. You're not losing him, I said. You don't know that. No, I admitted softly. I don't. But I know what losing you would feel like. And I'm not willing to let that happen. His eyes met mine, blue and broken and searching. You meant it? He whispered. That you're not leaving? I told you, I said, brushing my fingers against his cheek. I'm not leaving tonight. His expression twisted with fear, and I touched his chest, right where I knew his heartbeat would be racing. But Adrian, I added gently, I'm not leaving tomorrow either. He inhaled sharply. Ezra, I'm here. Just don't lie to me again. His breath collapsed out of him as if gravity had doubled. I won't. I swear. We stood there, close enough to feel each other's warmth but not quite touching. The basement's chill wrapped around us. The monitors hummed. Luca's breathing steadied. And then Adrian whispered, Come upstairs with me. Please. I hesitated. Not to talk, he added quickly. Not for anything heavy. I just don't want to be alone right now. That broke me more than anything else. Okay, I said. We walked upstairs slowly, leaving the basement door cracked so we could hear the monitors through the hallway. The storm outside had quieted into a soft drizzle. The air smelled of damp earth and something like surrender. In the living room, Adrian sank into the couch, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. I sat beside him, leaving just enough space to breathe. He glanced at me. Do you hate me? He whispered. I shook my head. I'm hurt. I'm angry. But I don't hate you. His jaw flexed. I hate myself for lying. Then don't hate yourself, I said, touching his arm. Just do better. He looked at where my hand rested on him, then slowly laced his fingers through mine. When he spoke again, his voice was dangerous in its softness. I want to tell you everything. Then tell me. I don't know where to start. At the beginning, I said. Start with Luca. He exhaled shakily. When he was 14, he started having seizures. Adrian began. Our father told everyone he was unstable, said he was weak, said it would damage the family's reputation if anyone knew. My stomach twisted. That's awful. Adrian nodded slowly. Luca refused hospitals after a while. Every time they strapped him to a bed, he panicked. And every time he panicked, our father punished him. His voice cracked. And I wasn't old enough to do anything. Adrian. I swore I would protect him the moment I could. And when I turned 18, I took him out of that house. But the world, the press, the board, investors, they would have eaten him alive. So you hid him, I whispered. I hid him, he admitted. Because the world sees mental or neurological illness as weakness. And weakness in my industry means blood. I thought of the way the mayor had knelt, the way senators hesitated around Adrian, the way he built influence out of fear because that was the only currency he'd been taught. Why here? I asked. Why the basement? His throat tightened. Because he feels safer underground, enclosed. It calms the panic episodes. And because I couldn't bear the thought of losing him in some hospital hallway while I was across the country shaking hands with politicians. He leaned back, eyes closing. I wanted to tell you, he said, so many times. But every time I tried, I saw the way you looked at me with trust, with love. And I couldn't bring myself to ruin that. My chest ached. But keeping secrets ruins trust faster than the truth ever could. His jaw clenched. I know that now. And I'll spend every day fixing what I broke. I brushed my thumb along his knuckles. Then start by letting me in. Not just into the secret. Into everything. His breath shook. Ezra, I love you. The words landed between us like a small, trembling miracle. It had been months since he'd said them. Months since they felt unguarded. Not rehearsed or hollow. I swallowed hard. I love you too. He leaned forward then, forehead resting against mine. And in that quiet, breathless moment, the storm outside faded, the house settled, and everything softened. For the first time in months, it felt like we were us again. Over the next week, I learned everything. Adrian showed me medical files, doctor's notes, MRI scans. He introduced me to the private physician. He trained me on how to reset Luca's foreline and how to calm him when the hallucinations hit. We slept in the same bed again, though not always touching. Sometimes we lay back to back, breath sinking slowly, relearning what closeness felt like after weeks of drifting apart. One night, around 3 a.m., I woke to Adrian holding me tightly, face buried in my shoulder. His entire body was shaking. "Nightmare?" I whispered. He nodded against me. "About Luca?" "No," his voice cracked. "About losing you." My chest tightened. I turned and kissed him gently. He kissed me back, desperate, like someone who'd been underwater too long. We didn't fix everything that night, but we found something we'd lost, something tender, something intimate, something real. By the time spring crept across Lakewood County, Luca stabilized enough for short periods upstairs. Milo helped build a small sunroom for him, filled with plants and soft blankets. I brought my art students to paint murals on the walls during a community project day, pretending it was just for fun, never mentioning who the room was for. Adrian watched from a distance, silently grateful. Our marriage didn't return to normal. It evolved into something deeper, something more honest. We argued, sometimes real arguments about trust, communication, fear, but we never walked away from each other afterward. Adrian learned how to talk, how to open up piece by piece. I learned how to shoulder heavy truths without letting them crush me. One evening in May, I found him on the balcony, staring at the sunset. He looked softer now, not in power, not in presence, but in the way he allowed himself to be seen. When he heard me step outside, he didn't turn. He just said quietly, "I still don't know if I deserve you." I slipped my arms around his waist from behind. "You don't," I teased gently. He huffed a quiet laugh. "But you're trying," I whispered against his back. "And that's enough." He covered my hands with his. "Stay with me," he murmured. "Always." He turned, kissed me with a tenderness that melted every scar between us. In the distance, the house lights glowed softly. Luca's silhouette moved in the sunroom, Milo's laughter drifting through the air. Family. Messy. Imperfect. Healing. But real. Months later, on a breezy summer afternoon, Adrian found me in the garden sketching the hills. He sat beside me, brushing his knee against mine. "I bought you something," he said. I raised a brow. "Another easel?" "No," he handed me an envelope. Inside was a court form. My heart lurched. "Adrian, it's not what you think," he said quickly, placing his hand over mine. "It's a choice. Your choice." I stared at him. "You were right the night in the basement," he said softly. "We weren't okay. And part of rebuilding trust is giving you control back. So I signed my section first. If you ever decide you want out, all you need to do is sign it." My throat tightened painfully. "But if you don't," he continued, voice trembling a little, "then tear it up, and we start our marriage over. Equal this time. Honest." I looked at him, really looked. At the man who once commanded mayors to kneel, now sitting in front of me with vulnerability carved into every line of his face. I held his gaze. Then I ripped the paper down the middle. Adrian exhaled a shaky breath, relief flooding him. He pulled me into his arms, tight, warm, trembling with gratitude. "We start over," I whispered. "From the beginning," he said softly. "No more secrets." "No more secrets," he echoed. And then, with the evening sun spilling gold over the fields, he kissed me like we were new again, like our love had survived the storm, the lies, the fear, and come out stronger on the other side. Because in the end, the most powerful alpha in the county wasn't the man the world bowed to. It was the man who knelt willingly, heart open, arms trembling, choosing love over pride. And he was mine. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.